Hey guys, Shane here with eTrailer.com. Today I have a 2019 Grand Design Reflection fifth wheel, and I want to walk through how to install the Solera Slide-Out Slide Topper. This is what our slide topper is going to look like when it's installed. You can see it's going to give us plenty of coverage over the top of our box. This is the top of our box. Once you slide your slide out back in, you can see the top of the box is exposed outside when it's out there, but it's going to come back in and potentially leave any of that all those bad contaminants inside the camper. Another thing is that water can get inside. These moldings that go around the outside are not completely sealed. So when it rains and this box is out, there's a lot of open gaps in there that water can run down and run down any of the components that run along the side of the box. And all this nice wood that's on the outside here, what happens is it runs down the wall and it starts affecting the bottom of the wood paneling or the wood pieces down at the bottom, and it starts to spread them out. Well, then you're going to have to replace all of it and anything else on your wall that it affects. Having that slide topper on there, because it's going to span the same width as your T-molding, will cover that and protect as much of the top of that rail as possible. We won't have to worry about the leaves, sticks. We won't have to worry about the mold or the water pulling up and sitting on top of this box. We don't have those contaminants going in and out of our camper. If we don't allow that stuff to get on there, then we don't have to get up there and clean it off when we're done camping. It's going to save us time where we can enjoy our camping trip a lot more, a lot longer. When we're ready to go, we can just slide this back into place. We don't have to worry about any of that stuff. Now, to order the correct size canopy, or correct size slide topper, what you need to do is you need to measure from the outside edge of one side of your box to the outside edge of the other side, and you want to add at least 6 inches. The reason you want to add that 6 inches is because your actual box sits 3 inches inside of this T-molding, and we want it to overhang our box to give us that added protection on the top. These are not only going to come in black or white, but they're also going to come in many different sizes depending on the size of your slide out. As far as the installation process, pretty simple and straightforward. I will recommend getting an extra set of hands to help slide the canopy into the extrusion rail. Other than that, it's straightforward. Now that we've gone over some of the features, let's walk through how to get it installed. To start your installation, you determined if you're going to need the extrusion rail. If you look on your camper and your gutter has this opening on it, then you're not going to need this extrusion rail. If it doesn't and it's just a gutter, you're going to have to take your gutter off and install this. Ours has this on it, so we're not going to be using this piece that comes in our kit. Next, we're going to take these 2 brackets, we're going to flip them over, and you're going to need butyl tape. Butyl tape does not come in your kit, but you can find it here at eTrailer. And what we're going to do is we're going to run 2 pieces right along this back side to cover up these holes. What I like to do is take this paper, and you don't necessarily have to do this. If you take the paper and you kind of fold it over like this, we're going to take the second piece and we're going to butt it right up against the other one. The reason I do that, so when we push it into place, kind of push it down like that, it mends those 2 pieces together and doesn't leave a gap. We're going to do that same thing on the other bracket. The flathead square bit bolts, we're going to need 5 for each bracket. When we install these, this piece here is going to be facing up. It's going to be going up towards the top of the box. Let's go ahead and get these installed where they need to go. What we're going to do is we're going to take that edge, we're going to go up against the bottom of our T-molding and over as far as we can go to the corner. Nice thing about the butyl tape is when we run our screws through, it's going to grab onto that butyl tape and it's going to suck it into the hole and kind of seal that hole so no water can get inside. This step is really up to you. I like to do it because I like the clean look, but how the butyl tape is like pushing out the side, what I like to do is I like to cut that off. Now, we're not wanting to take the knife and push it against the side. All we need to do is really score the butyl tape a couple times And we should be able to just peel it off. Just like that. We're going to repeat that process for the other bracket on the other end. Next, we're going to need a Phillips head bit. We want to set our awning down the way we're going to be installing it. Camper's behind me, and notice that my canopy is rolling over the top. This bead is what is going to slide into the extrusion rail. You're going to need 2 bars that look like this. They're going to have a hole on one end, and you're going to need a cap. And the caps have a little notch in them. What we're going to do is we're going to take this hole, and at the end of our rail, there's a hole. We're going to take the rod, we're going to line it up with that hole. We're going to take this cap and we want to line up that notch with the hole. We're going to slide it in. We're going to take the self-tapper with our Phillips head bit, and we're going to drive the self-tapper into that. All we need to do is get it down to where it's grabbing onto this cap and holding this rod in place. On your extrusion rail, on one end, take a pair of pliers, and we want to take these 2 corners and bend them out so that when we're sliding our canopy in, those corners don't grab onto the fabric. Now before we put our canopy in place, we're going to take these 2 black, they're self-tapping screws, and what these do is we drive them through the extrusion plate, and what they're going to do is they're going to go into the bead of this to keep this canopy from sliding back and forth in the extrusion rail. What we're going to do is we're going to pre-drill the holes where we're going to be putting them, so that once we get the canopy on, it's not going to be as difficult to get these installed because it is a rounded edge. Our canopy is going to come to this outside edge of our T-molding. We want to go from the outside edge about 1 inch to 1.5 inches in, and we're going to go right up through the extrusion rail. And we're not going to leave these in, we're just pre-drilling the holes. We're going to do one here, and we're going to do one at the other end. You're going to unroll your canopy 1 turn, give you a little extra room. This bead is what is going to slide into the extrusion rail. Now we're going to get an extra set of hands to help us get in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this gutter kind of out of the way. We're going to feed that bead into that rail. Next, you're going to take one of these brackets. You're going to have one for each side. You're going to flip it around. You're going to have 2 ways you can install this. If you use the lower 2 slides, this is going to raise this bracket up. If you use these 2, it's going to bring it down. You want to check and see where your canopy is on the top side of your T-molding, and you can use the top one if it's not going to touch it, because that's going to put a little bit of an angle on your canopy so that water, when it's raining, will run off of it. If it's going to touch it, you need to use the bottom 2, because as that roller spins, you don't want that canopy rubbing on the top of your T-molding. We're going to take our bracket. You want this side up. We're going to use whichever 2 slots that you can, and we're going to take the rail and we're going to slide it in like that. We're going to do that on both sides. Next thing we want to do is where our canopy is on a roller and this edge, we want to make sure we have an even amount so it's centered on the slide out. We're going to take the end of it, pair of pliers, we're going to rotate it, we're going to pull this pin out. You're going to have one of these at both ends. I suggest holding on to these so that if you ever have to get up here for any reason, do any maintenance, you can take the roller, spin it, and put these back in. It keeps these arms from spinning and loosening the spring on the inside. Once you get this set up here, you take your pins out, it rolls up. If these arms are sticking out, they're facing out like this, roll your canopy back, put those back in, slide this bracket off and spin it and stick it back on there. You want these facing up like this, not out. Once you get that, where these are up, you're gonna have some little bitty small Allen head screws. They're gonna go into the bracket on each side on whichever slots you put them in. So if you put them in the top 2, you're gonna put them in the top 2 holes. Once you have those tightened down, go ahead and double check to make sure you're even and your canopy is it's centered on your box. You're going to have two self-tappers. They're going to look like this, and they're going to go right into the end here. They're going to go up through this rod. One thing I will tell you is when you start putting these in, don't just drive them in, because when these get hot, the heads will break off. So kind of feather it as you go. We'll put one in both of these holes, and we're going to do the same thing to the other end. So now what we're going to do is we're going to slide our box out. What that's going to do is it's going to adjust the canopy inside the extrusion arm, or extrusion plate. Once we get it out, we'll slide it back in, make sure it's rolling up straight. We'll roll it back out, and we'll put the two screws in on the bottom of the rail. We want to do that on both ends. Once you've got all your hardware in, you run your box in and out a couple times, made any adjustments necessary, you're ready to go. It's going to do it for a look at and installation on the Solera Slide-Out Slide Topper on a 2019 Grand Design Reflection fifth wheel.